Healthy versus unhealthy ISFJs. Whose needs? Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. I often think of the high introverted sensing types, ISTJs, ISFJs, ESTJs, and ESFJs, as being associated with maintenance and homeostasis. These things are about conserving what you have, looking after things, and not being reckless, rash, and overly risk-taking. A healthy ISFJ will make sure that they themselves, their own health, and their own lives are always towards the top of that priority list. They are often referred to as the defender or even caretaker. These describe a person who is focused on other people and their well-being. Sometimes, often even, to a fault. This is a problem that comes from the dilemma of knowing your role in life. ISFJs know that they can be great in that supporting role. They'll also know that being in a supporting role is far from being a supporting act. In fact, despite being quiet and unassuming, it's probably the most important position a person can find themselves in friendships, business relationships, and romantic relationships. After all, if people are dependent and reliant on you, that affords you a great deal of leverage and indeed power. Curiously though, looking after themselves doesn't give them the same level of enjoyment. It might even feel somehow wrong or selfish. In this sense, they can tend towards a kind of overly sacrificing mindset when it comes to other people. I think a good piece of advice for ISFJs to internalize would be that there is great virtue in helping people, but no virtue in martyrdom. Certain personality types, most likely I would say the high FE types, can often fall into situations and mindsets where solving other people's problems are more appealing than solving their own. This is both because they do genuinely care about helping others, but when a type is unhealthy, and especially for unhealthy ISFJs, this can turn into a willful ignorance of their own issues in life. Because they can be so excellent and expert at helping other people and feel deeply rewarded by it, it can be a suitable and even addictive band-aid to patch over their own problems. You'll notice that some people, when they're over another person's house, will feel kind of compelled to help, maybe by doing the dishes for them. Whereas in their own house, they won't be anywhere near as eager. That is the kind of impulse that ISFJs have to fight against. Stubbornness, stability, and chaos. We cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust the sails. ISFJs are consistent, habitual, routined, and pretty stubborn too. They construct systems in their life, which they meticulously craft over time, and these can become so well-oiled and mastered that they can run huge parts of their life kind of on autopilot. They desire and are exponents of stability. They resist and plan preemptively to mitigate against chaos and its impact. Certainty is something they like because it allows them to make use of their strengths. For ISFJs, a bird in the hand is worth about 10 in the bush because of what they can do with that bird. So to speak. One thing that will occur to any habitual person is that often our habits and routines are arbitrary. They can even be completely biased towards the first thing that happened to work, the first good experience they have. The moment something works, they latch onto it strongly, sometimes stubbornly, and they might stick to that rather than experimenting. It's kind of like ordering the same thing each time at your favorite restaurant, even though it might be the only thing you've ever actually ordered from there. When you know something is good and enjoyable, you get both the anticipatory enjoyment and that certainty the experience you have will be something that ticks your box. Why take the risk and order something you might hate? This is in contrast to other types who will get bored by doing something over and over, even when it's working perfectly. Unhealthy ISFJs are going to be strong-headed, stubborn, and rigid to the point where they might lag way behind when it comes to making necessary changes in their life. The most practical way to take the edge of this tendency is to first be aware of it. When you feel that sense of comfort and relief, when you found a way of doing something that works, just take a moment and think, let me not get completely attached to this. Let me try a few other ways first before settling. The beauty of this is that since ISFJs, when they do hunker down on a particular approach to something, tend to nail it, the benefit of staying open-minded at the beginning is huge. The ideal would be to maintain that open-minded and experimental philosophy indefinitely, but this is a good way to start. Contenting with chaos is understandably not fun for ISFJs. In life, there are things you could call fixed systems. An example of this might be a musical instrument. Now, I'm not saying that ISFJs are any more musically capable than any other type, nor will they necessarily order the same thing on a menu or do other people's dishes, but when they can deal with things that they know aren't going to change, they can do very well. Fads and trends notwithstanding, instruments like the piano and the guitar haven't really changed that much for a very long time. The principles, formulas, and knowledge associated with them are timeless, or at least very long-lasting. Chaotic situations could be defined as ones where your knowledge is either useless or only partially useful. People will often think back on these chaotic chaotic moments, especially if they haven't handled them well and made mistakes, and say to themselves, if only I'd known X or Y, then I would have done better. In reality though, it's rarely because of a lack of knowledge. Chaos, kind of by definition, makes much of your preparation redundant. It's more about mindset, calmness, and composure under pressure. The only way to develop that skill is to throw yourself into things without panicking too much. Unhealthy ISFJs will avoid this like the plague, whereas healthy ISFJs will increase their tolerance for it over time. Whenever possible, I try to make videos on types that don't get as many views, so whenever I see lots of comments, likes, or subscribers that come from it, it makes a big difference. Also, feel free to check out our Discord server, which I'd highly recommend joining.